It's time. Oh, so it's not on Discord, it's on Twitch.
Can you hear me? Hi, so we're going to get started in just a second. It's not letting me screen share anymore, but I have just a quick announcement that we are moving over to Twitch because we hit the attendee limit. So I'm going to drop the link here in a second again because the chat is going very, very fast, and you guys have probably lost the link. So here's the link. Please make sure to log out of this Discord so that your internet does not crash and you don't. It's not going to show that anything is on there yet because we're doing some last minute tech stuff.
Sick.
Thank you, everybody. I'll be hanging out in here to corral everybody. But, yeah. Oh, here we go.
I'll have to follow our only chat. Oh shit. What do you mean live? Oh my god. I don't see anything. I thought I was missing it. Maybe I am missing it.
Season 2, and he gives
so
us
annoying.
he has full trust in us and a lot of freedom. So we're a very, very happy department in some way where we are able to really shine and push our animation, go far into the whole process of that.
That's awesome. So is the second studio, is that new? Or was it starting, is a new studio, right? Or is it the other way around?
So basically the first studio, the core of Fortiche is in Paris. And during season 1, there were talks of trying to do the production a little bit faster because they wanted to get it out, etc. So they started to think about outsourcing or doing things like this, and we offered, we proposed to Fortis to maybe do a studio here in the south of France and one in Las Palmas in Spain, where it's nice to live. We have sun. We have actually it's raining today.
Well, Montpellier is not exactly a crappy place to live either. So let's not get started.
But voilà, so and they completely went for it. I think that's what I love as well about Fortiche. It's a family-like atmosphere. It's open to new ideas. The studio heads, the 3 owners of Fortiche, they're artists, and it feels like a small company. What can I say? It's artist-centered approach, so it's really all about artistry, pushing the craft, and it's a studio that's really feels good to work and to be part of. And it comes from this core of the 3 owners, which is Pascal Charrue, Arnaud Delors, and Jérôme Combe, who are 3 artists, 3 French guys who all have their specificity in the production of the studio and of Arcane.
That's very cool. Just so before we get too deep into it, and just for fun to kind of set the stage for people to understand where you're coming from, before we get too deep into it, just give us a really kind of condensed, because I know I don't want to waste too much time stealing from the main event here of digging into all this stuff, but so how do you get into this?
Well, I was at Gobelin School I was always loving drawing, always loving doing things in my class book. But I was in Gobelin School in France, and then I went to DreamWorks for about 13 years, where I worked on movies like How to Train Your Dragon, Kung Fu Panda, Rise of the Guardians, and others. and I decided to came back to France because I was missing my roots, my culture, and so I came back to the south of France, and here Fortiche offered me to join them to work on season 1, and I couldn't refuse. I left everything. I went to Paris at my mom's house. I'm 40 years old at my mom's house. It was for like 6-7 months, and then the whole Montpellier thing where I offered them like, should we do something here, create a studio, and then I'm living in Montpellier working for Fortiche. I'm the most happiest guy on earth, actually. It's an honor first, but I'm really so happy.
So I didn't know this part of the story. So you grew up there, came back there, and then because you grew up in the south of France?
No, I grew up in Paris.
Oh, okay, all right. But
so I grew up in Paris, but living in Paris is tough. It's like New York is like a tough life. Yeah. So I wanted something a little closer to California. I think Montpellier is the French California. Sometimes I say that.
I think that's a pretty accurate description. Okay,
in Montpellier they have a little structure like where they're trying to get studios to come. So it's the 3D industry is getting bigger here.
Yeah. Well, Ubisoft has, as I understand it, at least I think I know that they used to. They still have it. Oh, they do. Okay, good.
Yeah, it's the big.
That's where all the Raving Rabbit stuff was all done at the Montpellier studio, and I feel like there's a vibe about that part of France that a lot of really crazy, edgy stuff comes out of. So I'm not super surprised that you guys have a studio there. Okay, so I know everyone's chomping at the bit. Now that we set the stage, people kind of, I know most people probably knew a lot of, your backstory, but I want to make sure that anybody new tuning in got a chance to get caught up. Now that everyone's caught up, what would you like to start with? Let's dig into it.
So it's going to be a little bit of sorry guys if it's not what you were expecting to be today, but it's going to be a little bit of showing you things that maybe you're not going to be interested in. Maybe some people will be. It's very, very animation focused. Okay, so it's very oriented towards animation only because this is my craft, my specificity. So what? But let's start maybe with workflow.
Sure.
I want to talk a little bit about the workflow, and I can show just a shot of Arcane. So it's a shot of season 1, and the animator on this name is Lucas Ancel, and it's just to show you how we go about things. So first we do references. You've seen that a lot. We're going to talk about references after. Once we have that good reference, we're going to start by doing something that's called key poses, intention poses. I think everybody does that in animation, but we do the same because we want to really work the drawing. The drawing is like the posing aspect of the character. He's going to describe the shot for a very long time. He's going to stay in that pose for some time, so we really want to make sure everything is well crafted. And so I'm going to go about this after a little bit, where we go and pose before and after. There is something that we do a lot on Arcane where the supervisor, they save the pose of the animator before and we tweak a little bit and then we show after. It's just to show how much craft goes into posing the characters and making them look very specific. So here will be the first intention poses. Then from there you'll see that we divide the shot on in-betweens, on 4, 6, 8. For people who are not understanding, is like there is like 4 frames between keyframes, or 6 frames, or 8 frames, depending on 7, 8, etc. And then from there we go in something that we call on twos, which is similar to what Spider-Verse does, where characters are in step, they're choppy, but we go fully on twos to really go into the detail of this. And then from there we go in full spline, which in general when we're on twos we're about 45% done. 65% done, so we have about 35 to 40% left in terms of spline and polish. So it's still a lot of work that has to be put into that. So let's take a look at this. Hopefully it plays well.
And I'll just jump in really quick to for people who may not understand. I know that most of the people in the audience are probably animators, but for those who are not, when Alexis talks about on twos, it's kind of oversimplified a little bit. It'll be a lot like animating at 12 frames per second as opposed to 24 frames per second. So things feel a little bit more staccato. They have a lot more texture to them. It's got a much more kind of earthy vibe to it. And as he pointed out, that was made refamous recently with the Spider-Verse movies.
Yeah, or the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, and it's something that we'll see a lot more. It's a good way as well to be more productive in terms of animation, but to keep a certain quality. Because obviously you don't have to go to this 35% extra that costs a lot of money when you have to do it. And I see some people saying in the chat, yeah, sorry for you guys, we're not so technical in animation as I was mentioning. It's going to be a little bit like this. But it goes for the Agora community, guys. It's all about sharing and giving back to this. So sorry for the big Arcane fan, but we're gonna see some cool stuff anyway.
Oh yeah, let's see some good stuff.
Do you not understand? I am part of this now. The next parents will get a message their kid isn't coming home. Do you not understand? I am part of this now. The next parents will get a message their kid isn't coming home.
So you can see right now this is on twos. This is fully on twos right now. So this is what we show as our first blocking to the director, or for example to Bart or to Christian Linke. And then from there,
you guys consider that a block?
Yeah, that was the.
Wow.
The only reason why we're able to consider that a block and to go so far into it is because sorry, I'm just talking.
Yeah, I just want to clarify something for those who are wondering my surprise. I'm not looking at that going, wow, that's really crappy. That's not nearly good enough for a block. It's the opposite. I feel like that is, from my experience, that is a very polished shot for block. But there's advantages to going there if you can get there quickly, naturally, right?
The real reason for this is because the directors and the animators, we had a lot of time. It's like about 6-7 years of production together, and for sure we really understand each other and what we wanted to show. There is the fact that the storyboards are locked very early, as we will see that, and so what we're going to do in the shot is not going to be reinvented like in a lot of other movies where you're actually starting your shot and then they're like, oh no, make him fall on the head, no, on the ass, no, like this, like that, and you try different ways. You do 10 blockings and then you have to redo, so you tend to show early, and we don't go through that because we have very clear intent. They have a very clear vision. The boards are completely locked, and so when we're going into animation, we're very secure into what we do. And on top of that, we do the references, which allows us to really make sure that the intentions are clear.
So that was going to be my follow-up question. I'm glad you brought that back up. Are the references that are actually really quite well edited and performed, are they used as part of the approval process? Are they being shown to supervisors or not?
So as somebody from DreamWorks, I don't like to show my reference because I like to show my animation, to show the product. But at the same time, we're doing that more and more because the directors and everybody are animators. Like Bart is a director, and I think they react well to reference. They can understand what we're going for, and so yes, it's becoming a bit more. But I still like to show animation more than references, if I'm honest. Yeah. But here we have a clear vision, and this is part of my job, is to say when I think the reference is not hitting the director's intentions, and so we redo it together, trying to get that right. But I think it's good to definitely push the reference in terms of with the animators, because this is the moment where he can bring his stuff, where he can bring his shot.
You find the animators the tricky question about references that I always get asked is like, yeah, that seems easy for some because I can see that what's the animator's name is Luca. So they seem like they are comfortable in front of a camera. It's clear that they have at least some acting chops, whether that is just natural or whether it's been trained. Talk to me a little bit about that. Like, if you guys are using a reference as such a mainstay of the process, are people getting trained up?
So no, we're not getting trained, and some of us are better than others.
Yeah. Okay.
And so what I tend to do is I tell animators, well, guys, actually, ask Lucas for help on your references, because Lucas actually really good actors and he tends to do really nice references. There was also Camille, another girl who was doing really cool references they will see later on, and I'm like, can you go see her and ask for that? And me, same thing, when I was at DreamWorks, I would always ask JP Sands, who's a very good friend of mine, for references, because his subtext, his way of seeing things is beyond what I'm seeing most of the time. So I think it's very cool to go and see others in the department and to get the help, because your shot is going to shine, more, because you're getting some others to do your reference. And some people, they want to own their shot, so they're keeping on doing that and keeping their reference. And me, I always thought, like, if my shot could get better, I would love to actually get help from others.
That is the best advice I've heard in a really long time. Like, honestly, because don't be so precious about you, or like if you're too nervous to get in front of a camera, if you want to shoot reference, like, you probably know somebody who's quite gregarious. Everyone's got a JP sense in their life, at least I hope. And they don't mind getting in front of a camera, and they are very good at emoting, and they just have that body language that translates well onto screen. So, because you're going to be leaning in on the reference, just make sure you got good reference if you can, right?
Exactly. exactly.
Okay.
I want to show, actually, talking about reference and yes. I want to show this clip that is very old. That is very old. This is Geraldine Page, and this clip here is going to show you the actual inspiration for a character in an animated movie. I think he's the first animator to ever do that, where he really gets an inspiration from an actor and trying to incorporate that into an actual animated movie. Mine broke. Let's go back. Do you guys have the sound? I'm not sure if I mute. Oh, I mute all. Let's go. Sorry, guys.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did that by accident. My bad.
No worries. Let's go. So, anybody in the chat could tell me if they have an idea of who that character could be. It's a Disney villain, but it's like a Disney villain from a Disney movie. Nobody in the chat? Okay. Let's see. So he would extract the actual performance of the character and push it further. But it's like he's the first guy who actually had an actress look at that and say, "Oh, she's the one doing the voice as well." But like the inspiration from it, for example, in the movie, she comes out of the shower, she takes off her eyelashes in the same way. That context of her taking off her eyelashes being so specific is really cool. And well, it's just the first reference. I mean, they used reference back then, even on Snow White or on things like this, like from the very early beginning. But this one is like acting references, character reference, and it's going deep into this, and I just love it. Sorry.
You know, it's also interesting just to point out that, like, if you take a look at, because these are old school, classically animated clips that we're looking at, right?
Yeah,
and
very.
And these would all be animated at 24 frames per second. Ironically, you know, not even more beyond that is those old schools sort of films were typically animated on twos, right? But only on ones where necessary, right? So that's why when you look at that stuff, it's got a certain charm to it. That's where this inspiration is, well, part where this inspiration of animating on twos in modern animation is kind of coming from, because it's got that really earthy, very, very organic vibe to it.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see, what should we show next? A lot of people, we're going to keep in the reference part. I've had a lot of questions on how do you guys do references for action shots. So for action sequence on Arcane, we've seen those big action sequences. So I'm going to show you a little peek of Welcome to Noxus fight between Darius and Trundle. So it's not Arcane, it's actually that just came out. And to show you how the animator is doing this, so you see there is some fun stuff. We'll go a little bit more in depth on that. Let's take a look. Let me put this out for everybody.
Oh yeah. Spoiler alert.
giraffe is. I knew you guys would like the giraffe a lot. Me too. Yeah, go ahead, Ben. Sorry.
I have so much to say. So, I mean, one of the things that I find that's amazing, like, on top of the amazing animation and just how freaking on fire it is, I'm very curious to know more about the relationship with the camera department, because it is hard to not see how much of a character camera is in any of these sequences, whether it's an Arcane or anything that's coming out of your studio. And I just, if we could just take a second to talk about it. I don't know if you have anything even prepared that can speak to this. If not, maybe just a couple words. Okay, so I don't want to steal your thunder.
The layout department in Fortiche is awesome. It's so good.
Clearly.
The head of the department is called Pauline Motard, and she's just amazing at what she does. Another part of it is the storyboards department. We're doing amazing stuff and are going with version 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're going and they're cleaning the boards more and more as they go deep. But they establish a lot. For this sequence in particular, it's a lot to the layout, if I'm honest, because the boards were they were there, but it was not established, and so the layout really worked with the director, Bart Minori, and Stéphane, I think it was. But anyway, they worked a lot on framing this, getting this feeling of handheld camera, staying close to them, getting with you see those things coming on it, and like the breathing and all this. So you're really part of the sequence. Actually, at the very early stage, this was supposed to be a full one shot. When the camera doesn't cut. But for us, it's very complicated for the way that we do the process. Between the background and everything is painted for Fortiche. The backgrounds are painted, the textures are painted. So whenever we turn around a lot, then it becomes harder. So we have to find solutions and ways to make it work. But I think to me, this is just so good. For that. And I will show you a little bit about storyboards and how much I want to say. It's like references is not key to do shots like this, because we always talk about reference and say, oh, you should use reference, that's the way to do it. It's true, and the better your references, the better your shot will be. But here, those animators are top-notch animators. Like really, like this guy here, Johan, is like he's a king. He's so good, and all those guys, Clarisse and it's Leonard here. Those guys really are top-notch animators. And it's a big part of the success as well of these shots.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's why I started by saying, like, of course, the animation is just unbelievable, but like to complement it and like make it like it's just such a partnership. I think it's also important to note that you take a look at a sequence like this, and you'll see that there is clips from all over the place. There's different people acting. They've kind of put a super cut together. That you don't have to be like one person doing all the reference. You can lean on whoever you need to, who's ever best suited to do a certain sort of clip, and then piece it together, and you can see the results speak for themselves here. It's awesome.
Sure. Let me try to show you the boards boards thing that I was talking about. This is from season 1. It's actually what Bart showed me on the first meeting we had to say, would you like to come work on Arcane? And I saw that, I was blown away. The reason why I'm blown away is you will see how the boards and the animation, the final product is exactly the same. There was no editing done to this. It was from the beginning to the end, and it kept the same. And it's part of the success, I feel, as well, of Fortiche. Let me unmute up.
Supposed to follow them.
Sorry, it just caught us by surprise.
Now it's Congress is asking questions about you. That's not always how I want to tell you.
Kids, it was their fault. The explosion in the city.
That is them.
Yeah, the top signers are up in arms looking for him.
Smartest thing you ever said, boy. Get in the meal. keep him off the streets. I'll tell you about the new doctor.
Wow. Unsurprisingly, those boards are very detailed with lots of poses. It's more of like an animatic than anything else, right? Like, holy cow.
Me for years, I screamed this at DreamWorks. For years, I screamed this in every studio, saying, "Why aren't we going further in the boards? Why aren't we making this work in the boards?" And for teachers, like, "Make this work in the board." I was like, and then the Bard was like, "Oh, and you have real-time rig. Real-time rig as well is the fact that when you press play in your Maya, just press play and it plays real-time." And then even the tools, etc., they're really, really well done. Because it's a young studio, and so they had the opportunity to do that well, but they really they cracked the code by doing this. I feel like this is a big part of the thing, and
well, it just helps align, right? It aligns all the departments because you can better see what it's supposed to be. Like anybody who's like, I mean, an example I always pull out is the Alberto Miago stuff, like the stuff he did contributing towards the Into the Spider-Verse. Some of those animatic like sequences that he boarded out and kind of more than boards, those things are like alive, very much like these, and they translate almost verbatim to the final product. And you can see that same kind of thing going on here, where it's like the vision was crafted, and then everyone just rallies to that original idea and then adds to it, as opposed to it being kind of all over the place. It's just amazing to see.
In the same way, I want to show you the boards, the animation, the reference, and the final thing. It's just to see that even in these, it really goes with boards. I just love it so much, and now she's doing more stuff, and it's so impressive. Like the level of the boarding team is insane.
Yep. It's funny. I feel very. I think we are very much cut from the same cloth with regards to that topic. Like align early, align really, really early, because then everybody, all the other departments like animation, can double down on that. You know it works. It's the equivalent of prototyping a game early on, making sure that the game is fun and you understand what the game is supposed to be, and then animation contributes in making the animation as good as it can be, and like everybody's rallying to this sort of the spark of life, as opposed to it being like you're kind of slowly chiseling away at this rock all the way to the end when you have to ship, and you're like, I hope it's going to be good after this last little chip. It's like, it's good already. Everyone's like losing it, going, oh my god, at the board level, and so everyone's excited, and
exactly.
You put those extra hours in at night because you know how good it's going to be, as opposed to, God, I hope it's going to be good. It makes a big difference across the board.
I see people talking about the rigs. I want to elaborate a little bit on this.
Hold on a second. Let's before we get into a really hot topic like rigs. Vince, are we good? Are we back from break?
I think we are. Yes.
Okay, sweet. Okay, go ahead. All yours, Alex.
So in terms of rigs, guys, yes, the Arcane rigs are real time. How do we achieve that? We are not having proxy. They're actually the same way as you see them right now. So some people, they were really good at the beginning of Arcane in thinking about the rigging system and trying to make it efficient so it plays real time. Because I think it's important for an animator to, if you have to play blast, you're going to lose so much time. Each time you have to do a play blast, you're going to lose to a minute or something. So if you can have real time rig, I think to me was the success on DreamWorks when we had real time rig, the animation just stepped up so much, and so it was a big part of the process. And so for the real time rigs is just because the modeling department is also smart about how they subdivide and stuff, and they're not too heavy because we don't have a lot of pose deformers, and it's a lot of blend shapes, simple things. But it's still it's a lot of work for the animators, but that's why we have, as everybody was saying, Studio Library, for example, where we can save our poses. And part of the supervisor work is to actually create those poses for the animators so that they have something to start with. Especially something that I've been putting on my on the Instagram a little bit, which is a neutral pose. So this is the neutral. Then this was a pose that the captain, Bart Manuri, the head of animation, the animation director of season 1, created to make Jinx here go more towards powder. So in some scenes, we wanted to bring powder back in Jinx, and so the actual neutral for Jinx is somewhere in the middle there. And so those poses we save in the studio library, and animators start from that on their scene. But you can see here the picker of the face and the types of control we have. They're not like crazy or anything, but they work well for what we need to do. They've been thought well for what we need to do. And yes, to me, I think real-time rigs is the heart of the war. I don't know how to say it. It's like what you need to be careful about when you do your rigs. And so I'm gonna I've put there, this is a shot of one of my students called Laura Ruiz. I'm not showing the shot for her animation or anything. I'm just showing for Ramon's rig. Sorry, I'm making some promo or something like that, not really, but I love those rigs. Those rigs are real time on my Maya. They're very fast. They have all the things that you need for the face to create something that feels organic and feels kind of nice in animation. And I think it's something that you can find, and you can feel all the subtleties and all the compressions and these things that you can get from there with those rigs. It has that feeling of a bit of what we do on Arcane, and he went for that as well. I think Ramon is very smart in the way that he does his rigs, and you can actually swap them, and in the same way that we do on Arcane, where we have multiple different sizes, and no matter what, you can still get the same animation because the rigs are all similar.
They look relatively low res too. I wonder if it's probably part of the recipe as to why they're so real time. I would imagine. When I say low res, they're beautiful low res. Like I feel like I miss the good old days of we were starved of polygons and we needed to put them only where we absolutely needed them, and that in itself created this sort of beautiful sort of art form in itself. You know what I mean? I'm getting that vibe from these, which is really
he created three different female, 3 different male, and you can swap the different hair styles, etc. It's really nicely done, and they're really efficient. And I use them constantly in classes to teach students and to help them. But I thought I'd share that because of the fact that they're really efficient and really well done.
Can someone backstage, just because you did the plug kind of already, and I think that people are kind of losing their minds over these rigs. It'd be great if someone could drop a link for people to be able to find said rigs. That would be amazing, because I do agree these look fantastic.
Yeah, Raman Arango. Yeah. And as well, Agora has a lot of good free rigs. And that's very rare because Raman, they're not free. But I wanted to point out that as well, the one thing that I always tell my students, look at all the Agora rigs that you can have, and they're also very fast and voila. But yeah, definitely something in the rig that's important. I don't know where we're going after this. Yes, we were going with the studio library a little bit and the expression.
Yes.
And so it's very important to keep a certain feeling to vibe, for example, in here to have, and so we use studio library where we can select, for example, the nose or the mouth or these kind of things, to express a little bit of madness, or if she is surprised. It's very fast and efficient, and so that you can get expressions that are within the characters without necessarily having to do a lot. Now that being said, it's very rare when we use those face all the time. It's a good help, but I think animators, when they have their shot, they tend to go with what they see in the ref, the things of the ref, where it gives you certain intentions and things like that maybe is not part of the library.
Can you do me a favor, humor me for a second, just because it's a point of personal interest for myself? Can you go back to that other video that you were just looking at, where you were cycling between, but you were transitioning between the poses? Oh, and also, just for a quick sec, I'd like to just take a quick pause to just address everybody who's in the audience. For the questions, to be clear, I'm not ignoring you. I am kind of reading them, and I know that Alexis is sort of taking a look as well. There are people collecting those questions, and we will then try to address them, at least as many of them as we can at the end of the stream. Just because I feel like it allows us to cover more material that way, and then kind of have reserved time towards the end. So please do keep asking your questions. Don't stop just because we're not actually addressing every single one. Just FYI. So just this, I just wanted to say really quickly. Not only these amazing poses, but I love how I even just in these little tests I can see that sort of when I look at the animation in Arcane, I always talk about how one of the ingredients from my perspective is this sort of weightiness to things. Everything seems to have this beautiful overshoot and settle to it, and I'm even seeing it here in the face. If you guys take a quick look at facial muscles have their own inertia as well, and they don't just sort of go from A to B, and they don't just arc from A to B. They actually have this beautiful overlapping, overshoot and settle depending on the actual muscle group itself. So this is what I'm talking about. Like, really take a look at animation and see like how you can apply the fundamental kind of recipe ingredient stuff to everything, even something as innocuous as faces movement. Yeah, so amazing. All right, thanks for humoring me.
That's cool. It's really cool, Brett. Thank you. But that animation was terribly done by me. It was to showcase for actually somebody in the shape department to showcase the shapes for an interview. I'm not a big fan of my animation, but thank you though.
Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Whatever.
Yeah. I don't know. I know what
most people look at it. Okay, sorry. Continue. I don't want to get in the way.
No, I know I posted this for the class. I just wanted to say that this shot in the movie is very different from this one. The shot in the movie was actually animated by Tommaso Botaro. This is one of the only thing I had the chance to animate on season 2, which was Viktor face getting split in two. It was a pre-production test, and I love pre-production. I've been doing pre-production at DreamWorks for years, and even on Arcane and as a soup, I get to do a lot more of this, and so sometimes I get to show it. And so Riot was kind enough to say, yes, you can show this. So, but I'm just going to show my animation. I'm happy. So this is on 2, so that's why it's a bit strawby. It was not really finished, but it was so fun to create. So the rig gave me like a Viktor, and that I could slice into, and getting the mask out, kind of getting out there, and getting the hair you see to push out, and all this stuff was fun. But the actual final shot is actually cooler.
Can you just talk a little bit more about when you say pre-production? What is the goal of the pre-production phase as far as animation is concerned on a production like Arcane?
So the pre-production is we're gonna get the characters for the first time. So for example here, the new Viktor like this with his mask and stuff we didn't have. So we had the old Viktor in there, and so it's like, okay, how like we want us to have them split. So how can we do this? So we go cross department in general with rigging and textures and CFX, which is the guys who does all the hair and the groom and all this stuff together, and in pre-production we do it before it actually comes into the production, which means that we're the first one to touch it and to try to make it feel a certain way. And in pre-production as well, I've done a lot of poses with the new gun of Caitlyn, or the new gauntlets of Vi, or the new Rhino gun of Jinx, and these kind of things is the only thing that I get to do a little bit still artistically, because I'm still overseeing a lot of what the team does, but it's still something that I love to do, because you get to touch the character first and to try to give them a certain feeling, a certain way. It's always the vision of the director for those characters that we're trying to reproduce, but it's still something that I love to push.
Right. So in a case like this, you were kind of like, it looks like you were kind of experimenting with just the look and feel of Viktor going through this sort of transformation. And like, was there something technical you were trying to solve here, or was it emotional? Like, what was the goal of this?
Yeah, it was technical. It was purely technical to see if it would be actually working or not. Like, could we have it? They split after they put a lot of 2D effects and a lot of cool stuff in there to make it work. But the whole purpose is to see if it will work. And what I loved in pre-production at DreamWorks, and even in an Arcane, which I wasn't there, but what I've seen is when you do get to test the animation style. When you get to push for a certain animation style, and you get to restrain from something. If I was to talk about the Arcane animation style, for example, I would say it's something that is raw, that is real, that is naturalistic, that is weighted, that has detail, that is organic in the face. And if I would think of bad guys animation, I would think of something that is anime, but also cartoony, that is a little bit of inspiration from Arale, or from things like from anime. Or if I think of Cloudy, then it's very cartoony things, but I know they have some restraint in there where they don't go for squash and stretch, they go a lot for timing and posing. So it's like restraining some of the things of what you do in animation to create the style, and that's what you usually do in pre-production. And when you get to experience this and to see what are the types of things that you're going to do to your animation to make that work, is one of the most interesting things. And right now, I don't remember how to animate anything than Arcane. It's like, when I get to do
Take
maybe
it over. It's
a
like a
bit of
mind blur.
cartoony stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
it doesn't look.
Yeah. Makes sense. It's not a bad place to be, though. I think most people would say that it's a very nice bar to strive for. So it could be worse.
No, it's true, man. I'm super happy. Actually, I've always wanted to do that. I love the naturalistic intentions. You know, it's like it's thinking differently than the animation principles. I think when when they think animation, we think comedy. So it's like it needs to be fun. It needs to be push and cartoony. It needs to have overlap. It needs to have squash and stretch. It needs to have a silhouette. And me, when I think of animation right now, I think of intentions behind character. Actually, I actually like to have things that are more in front and actually hiding things instead of getting the whole silhouette thing. When I do my poses, instead of getting them to be fully broken, I like to have them actually work in 3D in all angles. We were discussing a little bit about that, Brent, earlier, and we see the Encanto one with the arms like this, and when you look from the side, it's fully broken. Well, me, I'm going the opposite way. I think this is not needed, and actually, if they want that feeling, they should use a long lens camera, and then we'll get that feeling of their hands being closer, and they don't need to break their rig or to actually to get a more wide angle lens or whatever it is. But so maybe I could share my screen for those poses of the before and after, which we were.
No problem, because they're static anyways.
Yes,
the reason why we were having a hard time with frame rate earlier, just for people, it's not like we don't want them to share a screen. We're just so if you just go ahead and share it, and then I think Vince can drop it. Oh yeah.
Perfect. So these are done by the animation supervisor I was mentioning sooner. So this is on Bessa. And the types of things that we would do to the poses, like in terms of anatomy, in terms of head angles, in terms of line, in terms of flow, and we tend to make it work from all angles. This one to me is my favorite. So you have here the before of Caitlin and the after, and you can see how that's the camera angle, so that's the final camera. And I'm going the opposite way of what Encanto is showing. Is actually by making it closer and going there close to her face and stuff, I feel like this pose is even stronger than it was, and it feels more natural. So to me, working in a pose that works in 3D, that is a real sculpture that you can turn around, and I think is a very important part of the posing aspect and drawing aspect. Right now we've been talking a lot about references and libraries. This here takes about 30%, 40% of our time, I think, on Arcane, where we establish the posing, and we spend so much time on those, making sure that they look great from every angle. And I know it's the same in a lot of animated shows, but it's not the same philosophy behind the posing about, for example, silhouette or not. You see here, we don't need the shoulder behind and stuff. We need to make it work so that the line and the perspective actually works in all angles. Warren here, the director wanted a catch in the moment. So to get that catch in the moment, we tried to make it feel like she was going to just throw it there. Or some small breaking things like these, like you see in the shoulders or in these, because if you look at Jace like this, we don't have any CFX. We don't have any stuff that's going to hide all of this thing.
So just really going to pause you, just for people who don't know what CFX is. This is like character effects. This is like a whole character filing department. They go in. A lot of productions will allow you to kind of break the rigs, and then some department has to go in there and basically add another layer of either blend shapes or something else to sort of like have some of these. If you take a look on the right shoulder there, for instance, on the before, you'll notice. You go back to before for me, Alexi.
Yeah, it's there. If you look at even here,
there it is. Yeah,
broken. Or
see
here,
collisions of geometry,
or the
right?
Shoulders.
Yeah. I just want to make sure people knew what CFX meant. That's all.
It's even CFX is like all the closes, and normally, like in any studios, when you're done with your animation, they run a simulation of the closes on top, which makes things feels more. But Arcane is like they say that the TV series costs an amount of fortune, etc. It's not exactly the case. Actually, Arcane was made very smartly, and yes, it cost a lot of money, but for what it is, it was very thought well, etc. And so, for example, to reduce costs, they try to have closes that are fitting tight, so they don't have to do a lot of simulation, things like this. And so, animators would spend a lot of time in reshaping and things. And we have also another department which is called Anim Fix, which is people that actually make it feel even better in all these things
Oh,
after
okay.
us.
So I was screwed up with my terminology then. It all depends on the company or the studio. So
Yeah.
you have a character fixed department is doing these collisions, these geometry collisions, but the CFX department is the simulations and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes they do both.
We also spent time on the face, small things. So this is the before, this is the after. Here it doesn't say, but like the nose being a little less disgusted and being a little bit more about squinting instead of that. So, or giving a more perspective, to Jinx when she's fighting Warwick here, and so bringing the knees and things like these. Or a lot about anatomy. We spend a lot of time in anatomy trying to make things feel just perfect in terms of like shoulders, bicep, tricep. So we study these. One of the lead, Alexis was doing a lot of like drawings with anatomy behind to show some of the animators how this would be done. So I think this was really well done. Well, you can see a lot of these. And these we have tons and tons where we just go in and we adjust just so that it has a certain feeling per shot. I'm gonna stop sharing and we can go back maybe to
Oh yeah, sure.
the other one. Cool.
What's
Hello.
next?
What's next? I don't know if I have anything else next after that. I think we're gonna see. I'm gonna play a little sequence with reference and the final product. We haven't seen one like this. This is about. I love that little sequence. It's Echo and Powder on episode 7. This is my first episode of the whole second season. I love them. Echo and Powder, and well, this is the animators behind it doing those references and making this moment sweet. Oh, let me unmute so we have the sound.
Like some big vibes. It makes me tear up in my eyeballs.
I love this episode so much. So
Yeah.
well done from Fortiche. The riot. So cool.
Very touching. And just another shout out to Luca, yet another cameo experience, sort of appearance in the reference video here. He's everywhere, this guy.
It's true. He's right. This look here is so cute. And and I wanted to just show this shot because actually we don't see it enough, but we actually did the zoetrope here for real. Huh? Like what happened is Tommaso here with his beautiful smile, like I've never seen him smile like this anywhere. Tommaso here, he did all the little monkey like this, and we made it spin so that actually we get this feeling. And he did all single pose, one by one. It wasn't being able to copy from one to another, so it was like a real zoetrope for real. And I think it's awesome. It was a very cool idea from Bart and Arno, I think, who are the directors of.
Okay, I have a specific question here, just for clarity. So when you say for real, what you're saying is you're just using the optics, the natural, organic, sort of, real optics of a digital camera, capturing at a certain frame rate, and spinning that zoetrope at the right speed that you just got it working in camera practically, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Oh my god, it's like, it's so meta.
It's not only here, but every time you see the G drive in episode 9 with Echo when it's flying and stuff, it's like this.
Yeah, it's like people. I don't know if people understand the term practical effect. Practical effect is something you typically do that's not animated or digital in front of a camera. You get the effect on camera. It's like this is very meta in the sense that it's a practical, non-practical effect. It's just so crazy because you did it in 3D in a digital world, but you did it with the physical rules of an actual camera, which is very cool. I love that.
Another thing as well is I don't know how long I have just told Tommaso here to tweak the face, change this on the on the character and all this because this was the shot was also we were seeing Echo and Powder there, but you actually really see that very little. But it's all animated, it's all there. But just giving him the props for this shot there.
Very cool. I just had another question too about the previous stuff we were looking at for my own sake. When you were talking about all these little finesses that you were adding to the face and to the arms, like you were focused on anatomy, you were focused on not cheating, which is interesting because that whole idea of not cheating, I feel also connects philosophically with that zoetrope, right? It's like, let's be purists about it. Let's try to follow the physical rules of this digital world and not push things too far, because I think when you push things too far, it can be argued other problems start to creep up, uncanny valley feeling, like that idea that it starts to lose the kind of that anchor to sort of reality that we're trying to have people suspend their disbelief for. I don't know. I think that's a really, it seems to be a kind of a cultural choice that you guys have made in the filmmaking of these series. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. So one thing I think that's very so what's cool about Arcane and Fortiche is the fact that the characters are very naturalistic in their proportions. They're very human-like and real, and they have anatomy that is correct. So the problem with this is usually you have renders that goes with that where the skin is showing all the little things there, or they're showing all the hair and they're showing these very realistic things, and then it becomes a bit of uncanny valley. No matter here where they're super smart, is the goal of Fortiche has always been to do illustration that are moving. They wanted to create things that feels like a drawing, that feels like a real illustration, and it can move in it. And so this is why those characters, we accept them and we feel actually they're beautiful because of all that graphism that comes on top of it that helps in making it feel good. And so we can push the naturalistic and the realism and these kind of things because the graphic style supports that in a good way and not in a way where it could be detrimental. But as well as I'm saying is they're also very the asset team at Fortiche. I'm still saying all the teams are amazing, but
you don't make a film. Yeah.
Those guys in the modeling department, the asset department, and the design, they are just like the same as the board and stuff. They are just insanely good. And one of the owner, Pascal Chary, the art director, and he's a art director, and he is a modeler. Like his thing is like sculpture, and so he pushed it so much, and the quality of the models and the characters that we get in the assets makes it such a easy thing for us, in animation. So we always say, animation is beautiful and Arcane and stuff, but it's actually all the rest that supports the fact that we can do that.
The whole package.
Would look a bit. Sometimes it could look a bit.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that statement in a really, really big way. I think that it requires, you don't make something like Arcane by just having one department killing it. You just don't. It's got they all complement one another in a perfect way. And I mean, and I don't know how many people know this, but like one of the choices that was made on Arcane, not to go too far outside the realm of animation here, but the backgrounds are beautiful for a bunch of very, very intelligent choices that were made on a production design level, right? Like a lot of those are are matte paintings, believe it or not, and
Exactly.
the foreground and the midground have a lot of practical 3D or practical, like actual digital assets to help sort of bridge the entire atmosphere. But like that in itself, that would be difficult
You can
to do.
see it here versus here. It's like a texture that is on top. But in general, we have very, very simple background things, and then it's texture that is projected on top of it.
Yeah.
And the texture is matte painting done by painters, like by real painters. Like everybody in the matte painting department in the background department is actually a real painter who.
So while we're waiting, you are. Did we come to the end basically of the show and tell that you want? Okay, so we can.
Yeah, I think we're good. I don't have
start
much
to shift
more.
to Q&A. That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love
that.
We're done. Okay, so some people are done, some people are not. They're all spaced out like I guess it depends on when they join, probably.
Yes. Yeah, maybe.
I don't remember how it works. I've been messing with Twitch for quite some time. We're going to give it another, like, there's supposed to be only 30 seconds, so we're going to give it another 10 seconds or so.
The giraffe.
This sequence, man,
Darius
kills me. Oh. Happy about what?
About this sequence being done and the results of it and what the animators done and the layout and the calm. It's like
It is crazy. I just wanted to just tie off a quick subject we had going into the ad sort of the ad attack or the ad ambush. Just if you are curious about more outside of animation, if you're here kind of like think this is really cool, but you want to know more about some of these sort of production design choices that were done, it's pretty well documented. You'll find a lot of really great videos out there on YouTube talking a little bit about what they did, how they made it look the way that they did. And I think it again, I hate to be a broken record, but this idea of using like painted textures also in my mind contributes to that very grounded, very tactile, very naturalistic feeling of the entire experience. So when you combine that with the on-to feel of the animation department and they're not breaking the rules on anatomy, and you add it all up and it stacks up, what you get is a cohesive creative direction, which is what you're seeing.
And I think all the successful animated movies have that.
Yeah.
I remember to me the first time where it made like in my head, it was like on Ratatouille when Brad Bird was talking about that, like in the way that they would treat the cameras when they would film the rats being like small rats in there and being able to, and then you're like, it's cohesive in the way where they think of the way that the cinematography is done in a way where actually it helps with the storytelling and everything is going for the storytelling towards that point. And so yes, and I think there is to me the successful animated shows, they always have that. I keep going back to Bad Guys because it's Pierre Perifel, one of my friends who did it. Maybe I'm biased, but there is something in there where they actually were able to push the animation style in something that wasn't seen before. With Jorge Capote, he's also an amazing animator, and JP Sounds. The three guys, they really came up with a way of moving that is feeling very anime, very pushed, with those timings and those ways of thinking animation that's very different than any of the Mitchells, for example, that was awesome too, or any of the Disney stuff that was very different, like Zootopia, where it's three different ways of approaching animation, but they all have things where everything goes towards the same goal of telling a good story and making it feel in the same realm.
100%. So I think what we'll probably do is switch to some Q&A.
You guys ready for some questions?
Yeah, but I'm going to start it off with one question because I'm a selfish person like that. I wanted to ask, to start off this series of questions, something specific about animation, direction or style on Arcane. And I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time. And so, we talked a little bit about this earlier, or at least I hinted at it, this idea of like what makes Arcane Arcane. I would imagine I'm a new animator coming on your team. What would you how would you describe, how would you tune my brain towards thinking about animating for Arcane? What is I'm sure you've had this speech many times because you've been in a situation where you had new animators coming on your team. So I don't think this is probably too much of a stretch, and hopefully I'm not putting you too much on the spot. But how would you describe it?
But me, I think the workflow, this is a big part of what being a successful animator on Arcane is, because you have very good boards. We're going to work on the reference together. Once you reference, here I'm talking about people that just start and that maybe are not senior, that are more junior. If you think of senior, then I would be thinking of different things which I can talk after. But I think using a good reference, being sure that we're on the same intent that the director wanted is important. And then in there is really establish the key poses and the appeal of the character and what we were describing earlier, all that stuff. So here we're going to work on 5, 6, 7 poses for your shot, very, very small amount, but just working them so that they really feel nice. And then from there, going in more and more into the polish. And then what I would say though is, if Fortiche is what you want, like in terms of animation, is what thing that you like, you want to have, to me, it means that you have a strong sense of detail in your animation. You want to really push for detail, small little things moving. Sensitivity to natural animation, like for sure if we see a very cartoony reel, might not be going towards what we're actually looking for, which is a bit more of a blend between VFX and live and feature film animation. I would say to be like perfectionism, like to really go into like being perfect on small things, because you can spend hours and hours and hours and hours on scenes and going really into details in there. To have good drawing and posing skills, to really establish the posing aspects and the drawing aspects of anatomy and thinking about that. A very deep understanding of body mechanics, I think, is key as well to success. And then the passion of the craft, like you have to be passionate about doing this type of animation. If not, what I see is, what I'm trying to say as well is, I see a lot of people tell me, I want to work at Fortiche because I've seen Arcane, it's amazing. Actually, I agree. Arcane is amazing, and I would love to work at Fortiche for that. But when you think of working at Fortiche, you have to also see the types of animation that you're going to be doing, which is going to be kind of restraining if you want to do cartoony things, if you want to push your animation. And as a junior, I remember wanting to push anticipation, wanting to push squash and stretch, wanting to push a lot of those principles. But you're not going to be able to do that. You're going to be very like, no. And so, well, you have to think of this, because it's going to be 8 hours where you're going to have to do a certain style that is not maybe the most, for me it's the most fun style, but for you might not be. So this is where you have to try to see what are your sensibilities in animation, what drives your animation passion, and if it's cartoony stuff, then I would push for cartoony things and go for that and push for your animation in there, and don't think of Fortiche, but think of Illumination, of Sony, of DreamWorks, for example, and but if you're more into naturalistic things and realistic and thinking about intentions and drama, etc., then yes, I think that's also something very good for you. And it should reflect in your demo reel. I think then your demo reel should reflect some of that. Speaking about demo reel, your demo reel should not be made for a studio. Your demo reel should reflect your passion for animation. It sounds very, very like stupid to say this, but a lot of people tell me, like, what is the reel that Fortiche is expecting? Like, what types of reel are you guys looking for? And so I would always say, well, body mechanics with weight and dramatic acting with intentions But I would say actually your reel should reflect what you want to be as an animator, who you are as an animator. It should reflect your passion for animation. It should reflect what are the types of things you like to do and how you do them. And I think if you're passionate about what you do in your reel, it will show, it will shine, and then you'll have more chances instead of doing a reel that is specifically designed for that or that.
Very good advice. I'm going to ask a question that's going to dig just a little bit deeper on my original question here. And I think it probably goes a little bit towards this idea of like, who are you talking to? Are you a junior coming on the team that you're giving advice to versus someone who's a bit more senior? So I think this is probably going to fit more tidily into that senior box. But like when we take a look at, because whenever I teach animation, I'm often talking about animation style as something that is
I have to adjust where I'm sitting.
Something that is relative to a reference. And so when you're looking at this stuff and you take the practice of relying on reference, you break down, you find your key poses, you start to break it down, you do all the things that you say you're doing. what is the added layer in your mind? What is it? Because this is clearly not just a reproduction of the reference at any stretch of the imagination. I don't want anybody who's not an animator in this room thinking that's what's happening, because it's not. There's a lot of artistry here, and I just want to know. I want to dig into a little bit there.
It's,
if you don't mind.
it's because it feels easy then, though. What you're saying is completely true. Exactly that. Like, it's not because you have a reference that's going to look like Lucas shot here, because he has a reference and his character looks like this. No, there's a lot of effort to have the pose looking like this and not look like it was before, where some of them were not as good. And I think it's that's where the artistry comes, is like looking at your ref and being able to extract the important thing of your ref, and then applying it to a character that's going to have a different design, a different feeling than you, and making it look good on him, and making it clear for the audience what his intent are. And I think this is what's very hard. And this is where people just start with the reference and they start to copy it so it moves, but none of the intent is there, none of the actual reason of why you did the reference is there. We don't do reference to copy the movement, yes, a bit, but we do reference to have a real intention that feels like a character is connected to an acting, to a dialogue, and that we don't have something cliche where we do like this all the time. So really reference is not there for movement, if I'm honest, but it's there for extracting the intentions of your shot, which is the how do we call it, the subtext as well. It's called subtext, is the underlying emotions that is saying in your line. Basically, whatever you say in your line might be something else behind that line. It's what actors do when they actually do acting in general. They try to have a subtext in how they deliver the lines, to have something to be said that is behind it, that's going to be more impactful or more depth to what they're saying.
Man, I love that answer. It's so well articulated. It's like not losing sight of what the original heart of it is, right? Like, I think if Andrew Gordon was here, he'd probably use the word specificity. And I think I've heard J.P. Hans say the same thing, right? Which is just another way of saying subtext. It's, what are you trying to tell the audience in this scene? Don't get caught up in just copying the movement of the reference, but make sure that you're recreating what's there, not what you see. And I think that is obviously a little easier said than done. That's why it takes years and years and years to get really good at this. But no, that's really great. Thank you for that advice. I think a lot of people appreciated hearing you say those things. Okay, so I know someone...
There was one person here saying, do we need to be a generalist or a specialist to get hired? I think you need to be a specialist.
Yeah, well,
for us, for example, whoever is going to be an animator at Fortiche is going to be already an animator and very specialized in these types of animation.
Yeah.
So
at
the
Fortiche,
more specialized it can be. At Fortiche,
just be specific. That's what you do.
At Fortiche, yeah. And I would say if you're thinking of DreamWorks, if you're thinking of Disney, if you're thinking of Illumination, Micros, L'Atelier, even Agora Studios, I think you have to be specific in animation, and animation being your goal. Not naturalistic animation, but just animation in a big way. But you need to be just for sure not a generalist where you're going to do a bit of modeling, a bit of rigging, a bit of this and that. You have to become really obsessed with your craft, and because in the studios in the big studios where we do feature film, there is very specific in the departments.
Awesome. Okay, I know someone had dropped some amazing person backstage was dropping questions, so I can read them off for you as they come up.
So the first question is actually one which got lost in the chat because we can only pin 50 questions at once, and we've had over 150 questions, but I remember it, so I'm going to ad-lib it.
Nice.
Somebody had a really cool question about, since you guys shot so much reference for Arcane, was the process very collaborative? Was it a process where the animators would just did their best reference shots and then show it to you guys, or was there a lot of back and forth collaboration even in the rough stages of getting different ideas? And as a lead, what was it like trying to lead your animators to find the best performance for these characters?
So yes, there was a lot of back and forth. I would have some animators who reshoot those references 4 times maybe, but like if I'm thinking of the big picture of a shot that takes 5 days, well, let's say 10 days, so I would have a bit more room. He's going to spend so much time on it that the 1 day or 2 day that we spend on the reference and we establish what's going to be the shot is a lot less than if we have to redo the shot again 2-3 times. So it's part of the process so that the animator feel more, the animator and the supervisor and the director, but we all feel like we're going in the same direction and we all agree on what we want to do, and so we don't have to redo, which is an animator's nightmare, is to redo their shots 100 times differently, which we all been doing. I mean, I've been doing that for years.
Just quick follow. That was a great question, by the way. Thank whoever asked that question. Awesome question. All right, I think we got another one that's going to be queued up.
Sorry, I just backstage stuff happening. Lacey, could you bring that one up? Because I have no idea.
Oh, there she's on
There
it.
you go.
Amazing. Okay, so do storyboard artists use reference in the same way the animators do? I noticed a lot of acting decisions are made in the storyboard stages.
It depends of the storyboard's artist, and there is also a mention about do all animators use references? No, it's not always the case, but we tend to like all the animators on Arcane tend to do it because of the result that it gives us. But we don't use it in the same way. I've done a lot of shots on season 1 without any references. For example, I use the boards as my references for my shots. So sometimes you can use the boards. They have amazing boards, and you can definitely use some of them. I don't know if you still have that, but no. Anyway, I use sometimes boards, and the storyboards artists, same way. Some of them do, and some of them don't.
Yeah, that's a really good question too. I was actually thinking, I was wondering the same thing. Considering what I saw on the boards were really, really well.
But those guys. So I think the boards that I've shown you were from Simon Andrevieux and Romain Barriot, who are the two boards supervisor of the season 1 of Arcane, and they're just phenomenal. But again, we have a lot of other boarders on season 2, and they're as phenomenal. They're doing amazing work. Like Josephine Mace, who is doing the Caitlin and Vi sequence of storyboarding, and she's just amazing. She just won an Annie Award, so very, very congrats to her.
Top of their game, very clear. Yeah, go ahead, drop another question. Yep, there it is. Let's see, I'll read for those who are maybe just listening to this, because I know a lot of people like to work while listening to a stream like this, so I'll just say it out loud before we get into the answer. But how did the animators work with the music sequences? Was it already locked in the storyboard, or later along with the animation? Another great question.
So it depends of the sequences. What we prefer is to get it before, so that we can edit the whole sequence compared to the music, because Fortiche is doing a lot of clips, and they're really good at doing clips. And so if we get the music before, then we can edit to the clip, and it makes a lot more impact. So on season 2, we had a lot more music prior to that. On season 1, it depended.
But awesome. Do we have another one? We have like so many questions. It's crazy. Okay, next question. I heard from one of your colleagues, who apparently will remain nameless, that the hair of Jinx is fully hand animated. What does the rig actually look like?
It's like a full FK, IK spine like this, with lots of controls. So you have 2 of them behind, and you can have different parenting to the shoulders, to the back, to the lower back, and it's a nightmare. We love those. Yeah, it's a collaboration between animation and CFX.
Okay, so there's some
animators would do a pass, but then CFX would help with the pass of animation, and sometimes even animator wouldn't do a pass, and CFX would do it all, and sometimes they would ask animators to help them with stuff. So it really varied. Yes, we did them a lot, and we animate the hair in every shot, just for to give them something tangible to have, because we have good controls on these in animation, and we tend to animate a lot of the small things. I see there was some questions about whether or not we animate muscles. We put something that we call stickies, which is controllers where we can put some extra life to things. We put them in the neck, we put them in the Adam's apple, just to create connections in things. So we do a lot to the characters in animation.
I see a comment here saying from Aesthetic Derelict that says, I would hate doing that. Sheesh. You know, it's funny because there are animators out there, there are special breeds that love doing this. It's like it is their jam. Like, I mean, I used to do a bunch of 2D animation effects back in the day, and honestly, it's not for everybody, but if it's your thing, it is one of the most zen things to do, in my opinion, but maybe other people disagree.
I agree, and also if you do it, then you have control over it, and you know what it would look like. You know, where if you don't, it's going to look like. And also, there was a question about who asked about small details, pupil dilations, hands, body movement, and stuff. All these details are asked by the lead or the supervisor, me, through each animators. When we look at the shots, we go in detail and we try to push for more subtleties, more connections. And if we look from the beginning of season 1 to the end of season 2, we really try to keep pushing further, all the details, all the connections, all the small things that could bring micro expressions and these kind of things.
Yeah, just a quick extra question on top of that then. I assume the rigs then have quite a bit of extra sort of deformer bones that are available to the animators to kind of provide that interconnectivity, because if the style, which not as much, that's surprising me, just because there's so much detail and that detail feels well connected to one another, and usually you need a lot of extra control to do that. But...
Well, yeah, we have control, but we have to move a lot of them in conjunction to get it. But yeah, it's really well done, and in the way again, it's real-time rigs, and we're able to create what we do with it. But it's a lot of work to get those connections going for all the animators, the lead, and the soup.
Okay, we have another question here. We have had... Is this a signing off message? Is what this is?
No, that's just letting people know there's too many questions for us to answer, so we can't always get to all of them. Another question which came up, but I can't find it now, is for the dance sequence in the Echo and Powder episode 7. And it goes to that strobing effect, a lower frame rate. Was it animated fully on ones first, and then set back to like 3 or 4s, or was it completely animated on that more stepped approach?
Yeah, it was completely animated on that stepped approach. And so all the hair flow and stuff was animated all those poses by the animators, even the jacket. And then they would help, with like CFX again and fix. But it was on 4s, the sequence. And the style after comes from the comp artist, and to get that little bit of flow in between them.
Yet another whole other department that needs to add their extra sort of layer of beauty to the whole process.
The same the comp department supervisor is Wanneroy, and those guys are just like insane.
The unsung heroes, especially of animation productions, because I mean everyone thinks of comp artists as being the champions of like a VFX sequence in a live action movie, but like comp in animated full length stuff like this are more invisible. They're not spoken about, but there's literally unbelievable magic being done by these people. Like it's crazy. I would encourage everyone to take a look at what kind of work is being done by these people, and what it would look like without them is actually a pretty big difference.
And the lighting department is very small at Fortiche. There is almost no lighting department. It's like 5 people, I think. The main thing is different passes that comp artists do, and they get that special Fortiche recipe that nobody knows about, but it's very secret. But it's like it's coming from the comp. Oh,
magic recipe. I like that. We'll figure it out one day. It's sort of like you guys are like, it's like the nest. What's the it's the caramel secret or whatever that it was like closely guarded, or maybe like Pepsi or Coke. No one will ever find it. It's in a safe somewhere in France. You got to go find it. Okay, so I don't know if we have another question we gonna drop or.
Yeah, I just wanted to check in with you guys. How many more questions do we want to take?
Yeah,
it's just got to be you guys for how long you want to go. So.
I mean, we got 4 minutes left technically, and I don't want to overstay our welcome with Alexis, because I'm sure he's got other things to be doing with his life other than entertaining us with his genius. Do we think 5 questions is reasonable, and we just cut it off there? I love it. Let's do it.
Perfect.
And sorry for everybody who doesn't get their question answered. I know there's going to be many of you. Okay, question. Was the technique used for the monkey zoetrope the same for Jace when he touched the anomaly?
I saw that they actually released the little behind the scene of the clip and how they did it with Jace and the anomaly. I'm not sure. I wasn't part of that sequence back then. It was another supervisor with Jean-Charles Gonin. But from what Bart was saying, yeah, it's the same principle. And it kind of looks the same way. It's going and then it goes into real time. So yes, I think the purpose is the same. Since we're animators, we always like to try to bring a little bit of those things in the show. I don't know if you saw it's funny, it's another time where it's there in the Welcome to Noxus, you have a mask that goes like this, that is multiple faces in there, and it's the same as that zoetrope type of vibe feeling that Bart wanted to add in there. I'm going to ask him actually next week why his obsession with the zoetrope.
Well, I mean, I guess again, I hate to bring it up again, but there is another thread towards practical, physical. Like the zoetrope was the very first form that required zero technology to see things in movement, right? And so it feels very appropriate and grounded in the philosophy, the culture, and the sort of the backdrop and like the vision of this whole thing. It's funny. This conversation has been amazing because it's made me aware of that way more than I was going into this conversation. Okay, next question. Let's see what we can do.
This is another one which I could not find again in the chat,
No problem.
but some people wanted to know about what is it like animating the slow motion sequences, and what is the trick to getting slow motion to feel really good? Because there's a lot of them, the fight sequences for Arcane.
I think to me the best way is to make it real time and then to go into slow mo. However, I've done slow mo shots where I actually went slow mo directly. But a very cool tool is called EB Labs, and they have a retime one. And if you're done with your animation, so let's say you animated real time like this, and then it creates a curve that you can retime, and you can actually extend like this, and then you get real slow mo. But you can get like you can go in real time, and then it goes into slow mo in a very simple way. So I think that's a cool tool to help, and that helped us even on Arcane. But I would say animating it real time and then making it slow. But I don't think we ever do that. I think we go for slow mo, and it's a long process because we need to make everything move, and it needs to feel very, very, especially on that Echo Viktor fight. It was like a lot of work into those slow mo shots, and well, actually a lot. A lot of a different sequence. Another sequence that reminded me of was somebody was asking me what was the hardest sequence. I think to me the hardest sequence was the one where it was no gravity. Maybe it doesn't. It's like when Vi is in the air, Warwick is flying to get Jinx on her Rhino gun, and you have no reference. You have nothing. You just do what you can, and because if we have animators go no gravity and trying that, it's impossible. But then you have to think about what does it mean no gravity for the hair, for this, for the if you shoot bullet, how would you go, what would it do? So it was a lot of thinking and a lot of back and forth. But and at the end, it was not feeling very like like an achievement of like I'm so this is so cool. It was like this was so hard, but now it's over. This one was the hardest, I think.
Yeah, I think the slow motion stuff is really hard because if you animate it real time, like you said, and then you dilate it, now there's all this missing information that would be there if you captured it with a high-speed camera, which is what a proper slow motion movement would be, right? Is you're shooting at like 200 plus frames per second and then playing it at 24, so you're capturing detail that you would not normally see with human eye, and so you got to fill all that data in. And so I guess
we also used the cameras. We got the cameras in the reference room, but it was a little late. That goes to 120 that we could put in 24. Sometimes we do that actually now. Now you say this, I remember this, but it was only towards the mid of season 2, I think, that we got those cameras, so it was not defensive.
Cool.
Okay, yeah, that's a very good thing. It's true that if you do that, you're losing that kind of aspect of the slow mo thing. You have more info on to what's happening.
Exactly. This is an actual kind of real big problem in video game production because we use time dilation all the time in games, but the problem is that you're just taking something that was animated at 30 frames per second and playing it really slow, and then the engine is interpolating between those frames, and it just turns into this totally textureless mud bath. You know what I mean? It's just not fun at all. So to do that really well, if you know there's going to be like say death sequences that are going to be played slow mo, some games have gotten the idea that maybe if we animate at 120 frames per second, just for those animations that they know will be time dilated all the time, that you've got that data there, so that when you dilate that time, it's not just sampling for you, it's got extra texture and detail in the animation data itself, so you get some really cool looking stuff.
One thing there is a good question. Sorry, I'm going to reply to this one.
Go for it.
It was like, how was the watercolor effect accomplished for a flashback sequence? Was it all 2D or shit?
Nice. I know I saw some people worried about ads. This is being recorded and it will be available at some point, so we just want to try to wrap this thing up without having to pause for the ad, so I'm sorry if you got stuck in an ad, but you will be able to go back and take a look, I promise, okay? Okay, so I guess we have 3 or 2. No, I guess you just answered a third question, so I guess we have 2 more questions.
All right, this one I'm going to read out because it's so long that it gets cut off.
Right.
So from Abyss Dweller, love the name. First off, great references for the animation. Although I wanted to ask, how do you push beyond the realm of just referring to reference? As someone relatively new to animation, I always feel like I'm just copying the reference. How do you add the flair that makes your animation stand out and have that unique contrast?
Well, that's a lot of practice, and it's what I was mentioning a little bit earlier, which is the fact that the reference is here for you to extract things from it, and you have to understand what to extract from it. And most of the time, people, actually, when I think, I'm going to take the example, sorry, I'm going to go for 10 minutes, no, I'm joking, but on Dragon 1, Chris Sanders was doing references for the animators. He did a reference for me for Fish Leg, where he was doing an amazing reference. I took this and I did a fish leg shot. And 10 years later in class, I'm showing the fish leg shots to some students, and I'm looking at the ref, and actually what I did in my animation, I'm like, this is completely wrong. Like, I'm not looking at the right things in the reference. The intent is so good. Why didn't I copy this? It's so badly done. And so I think it's hard at the beginning to really see the intentions of the reference, to really see what you need to extract. And it's something that you need to just practice and practice and practice. Okay? And I think the fact that you use reference is having something tangible is going to help you in practicing this, but it's not going to be the answer to all the things to make good animation. You have to understand posing, you have to understand drawing, you have to understand appeal, anatomy, how things are being connected together. I feel are a big part also of what can make this work. And learning about animation principles, learning about what actually are the roots of animation. I'm saying these I tend to not want for people to focus as much when I'm talking about silhouette or squash and stretch or these kind of things, but they're still very important for your knowledge, and also learn about all the other animators and what they do. Milt Kahl or Jorge Capote, as I was saying earlier, or Lucas Hansen, or whoever are your peers, or James Baxter, or Christophe Serron, or whatever. You need to know who are the people that created these, and how did they do, and what did they do, and all these things is going to feed your artistic knowledge, and it's very important. So using reference is not just to copy in your shot like this, is to, same as what I was showing Milt Kahl, you use an actor and you extract what that actor is doing, and then you put it into your animation as something else. You don't need to copy the reference just for copying. I think references is just a way for you to gather artistic knowledge, the same way as the Leonardo da Vinci was using reference when he was doing horses and things like that. Is the same principle. And anybody in any department as Fortiche is going to use reference in a different way to feed his artistic need.
Yeah, I just wanted to just add to this, because this question kind of came up already earlier in a certain way, when I asked about how do you go beyond the reference itself, and I think you said something then that I wanted to reiterate now, because I thought it was very, very important, and that is, don't just copy the reference, make sure you understand the subtext of the reference. Like, it is absolutely super duper important to remember the purpose of what was the emotional context and subtext of that moment. And make sure that even after you extracted your poses, look at it, ask yourself, am I capturing that? Am I capturing the movement and the frames perfectly? Am I capturing the emotion of the scene? That is so freaking important. It is the most important.
You know, like here, he's capturing exactly, the subtext of Lucas when he does, that was exactly where he was in this moment. I think it's exactly what Brent was saying on this.
It's actually what you were saying. I'm just repeating.
Sorry.
For the record.
You can see in here is like trying to extract this and this and there, and are we similar? And
yeah, like that's a pose. Like on a two-dimensional level, our brains can look at that and go, oh yeah, the corner of the mouth and the eyes are doing this and blah blah blah. But sometimes we we lose the forest through the trees, right? Like, we need to make sure we take a step back and just ask ourselves, we'll almost remove the reference and go, am I capturing, like, is that what it needs to be? Because sometimes you need to push it a little further too, like caricaturize the pose, right?
Look at the brows compared to this, or this and that. We're not copying the shapes of Lucas, we're copying the intentions of Lucas.
And there's a whole other layer that's going on there, which is you need to transpose Lucas onto, whatever character he's animating, right?
Jace.
In this case, Jace.
Sure.
But it's not, and that facial anatomy is different, and so you need to kind of, what is the equivalent, Jace, for what Luca is currently doing, right? Like, that is a whole other dimension.
Actually, I would I would give Luca a little retake. I feel like this is cool.
Get him on the call.
Like very angry, and there it lacks a little bit of that low teeth. Like, oh, I would love that. Anyway,
Okay, so I think we got time for one last question, and I know that frustrates everybody. It frustrates me too because I wish I could do this all day. But we'll just have to invite Alexi back for another one of these, I guess, right? No pressure, Alexi. No pressure.
no
Okay.
pressure. Hardest character to animate, I don't know, Jinx because of her braids. Easy. No, I think they're all have their specificity, but Jinx, I would say, to make her appealing, make her also specific, and what I would say, Jinx. Not sure, actually. I'm honest.
There you go. There we have it. No, we're done. We're done. We're gonna let you actually.
The worst answer
no,
ever.
No, it's not the worst answer. You had so many good answers to all the amazing questions, and I just want to take a second to personally thank you. Merci beaucoup, Alexis. And
merci à vous. Merci, guys.
Enchanté. Finally, we get to meet, and it was a really great conversation. More than I could ever dreamt of.
Super happy.
Yes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody here tuning in with all their amazing questions. Hopefully, you've all, gotten something valuable out of this. I know that I have, and I've been doing this for a really long time myself. We're all on this learning journey together forever and ever. It doesn't end. So welcome to the club, and thank you for sharing your experiences with us.
And keep your passion and keep owning your craft. I think that's what makes all
100%. Vincent, did you want to wrap things up here?
Yes.
From here?
I mean, there's not much to wrap up. That was great. That was fantastic, and thank you to everybody who showed up, and thank you, Alexi, and thank you, Brent. I know we have a bunch of new people here. We're a Gore community. We love animation, we love art, and we just try and make a bunch of cool resources so as many people as possible can learn how to be really cool animators. Alexi's been involved in what we've been doing. He's a mentor with the Gore community. We have a bunch of other cool people as well, so if anybody in the crowd...
Yes, super happy to be part of the Agora community.
Yeah, so to anybody who's new here, that's what we do. Thanks for being a part of it, and we hope to see you in the community in the future. And that's pretty much it.
See you in the next one. Have a wonderful rest of your day/weekend/week. Bye.